We're back with Brian Keane, and he's going to be telling us more about something else he's involved in, which is Microloan Foundation Australia. Can you tell us more about that, Brian?
Yeah, certainly. It's a lot of the businesses I've had have been by accident, or someone's spoken to me and so on. So I emigrated from the UK. I spent 10 years in a country called Malawi in Central Africa, quite a small country, but it was early days of independence. I had several businesses I operated there during my 20s. And when I met my wife, Prue, she was second generation, born there, had a young family. We emigrated to Australia. But I had a workforce of up to 100 people
Oh,
in Malawi. Bearing in mind everything was done manually. We concrete. It was all concrete mixers and the sand. I used to go and dig it out of the riverbed. It was fairly basic stuff. But I love the people. It's an impoverished country. They're amongst the three or four poorest countries in the world, but they're the most remarkable people. I often relate them to being an African cross between an Italian and an Irish sort of personality. They're
oh,
just so happy and always smiling. And I know they do it tough, and particularly women in that part of the world. It's just the sort of patriarchal way that it's evolved. So when I was in Sydney, and I was a director and shareholder of a public company that was in the pharmacy industry, I was just looking at going into a bit of part-time retirement. So this was in about 2005, 6, 7, and I thought I'd like to make some regular donations to women in Malawi to help them, and came across a business called Microloan Foundation, or not a business, a charity out of London, and they did what I wanted, in as much as they lent money to women only in rural areas where there was a real need. They trained them in running a business. They taught them how to set up and run a business. It may have been selling tomatoes. It may have been maybe repairing fishing nets, but they also trained them in bookkeeping, in marketing, in sales, and they gave them regular 2 weekly mentoring sessions. They lent them a sum of money, say 75 Australian dollars equivalent, for 3 months, and they paid it back. I thought that's fabulous. So I spoke to these people, and yes, I could make donations. And I really, somehow in a conversation with them, said, "Well, can I set it up as a franchise in Australia?" So, the principle was that I established Microloan Foundation Australia in 2008. We started operations in 2009. So we just had our 15th birthday of operations, actually, in May, and set up in a place called Malanje in southern Malawi. And up to date, we've given something like 80,000 loans, and sent across about $850,000 worth that we've raised, regular donations from people and so forth. And Franchise Simply, one of the reasons we went back into business after trying our crack at retirement, was to support Microloan Foundation. So we cover most of the simple overheads, all the bank charges and all sorts of stuff, website hosting, etc. And so I've got a passion for that, and I must say I'm proud of what we've managed to achieve from what was a very simple and humble sort of thought that I would give a few $100s a month to a charity of some sort. So that's Microloan Foundation Australia, and they've got a website in their own name, .org.au. It's an amazing organisation, and we get a 99% repayment rate from the women we lend to.
pretty good, right? Pretty good. And how does Sir Bob Geldof fall into this?
Well, he was approached and became the patron,
Okay.
And he did a video as well, which we still use. So it's always useful to have names out there. They sort of identify. I think we all know that. In our businesses, we'd love to have a name of a celebrity or a sports person or something like that. And he certainly helped with that. In Australia, I approached a classical pianist called Simon Tedeschi. Most people in the pop era wouldn't know of him, but he's one of Australia's greatest pianists, and he was playing at the Sydney Opera House at the age of 8.
Whoa, Jesus.
He's an amazing artist. He plays not just classical music,
Mm.
but blues, jazz, and so on and so forth. And he agreed to be our patron in Australia. So
Wow, that's so cool. I couldn't even spell the word piano at that age, never mind play it. Jesus. Talented people, talented people. And we're going to come back and we speak to more about to Brian about all his businesses. We've got some questions to ask him as well. But we're going to go back to the music. Brian, what's the next 4 tracks that you've chosen?
Right. Well, Elton John came from fairly close to where I lived, where I was brought up originally in West London, and one of the tunes I've always loved of his, it's just a lovely, delightful sort of harmony, as most of his stuff is. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah.
You know, and I suppose my kids loved it as well. Going back to their formative years. And so forth. So that's that one. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. It's one I'll pick out occasionally, and yes, enjoy singing along to.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose in my early teenage years, early to middle and later, I was an avid listener to the radio, to music. I started collecting records very young, and I used to go to jazz clubs and blues clubs and that sort of thing. And Eric Clapton was one of the people I saw live on a number of occasions. And so I've chosen one of his tracks, Wonderful Tonight. So, it just takes me back to when I was standing in a sort of a fairly large pub out in Maidenhead, I think it was, just south of London. And Eric Clapton was there playing away. So hence that one takes me back to that. The next one is one that's just a lovely tune. I really love it. It's one that's quite famous for having a dispute because he was challenged legally, George Harrison, that My Sweet Lord was actually copying another record. I think it was To Do Ron Ron or something like that. Then he lost the case. I think it cost him $1 million or something like that. Small feed, of course, later in life. But yeah, My Sweet Lord, I like that. It's just a beautiful harmony, a lovely song. And then I come along to, I suppose, that era of music that was just so dominant from the States. The Jackson 5 were really there as I suppose, some of the early practitioners of that sort of era of music. And Jackson 5 was just one of those that came out of it, of course. But ABC is just a really simple, great tune, a real foot tapper.
Yeah.
One that, I always enjoy listening to. If I listen to that, I'll flick through my record collection, which I've still got, and I'll find a couple of others from that, Diana Ross and things like that from the period of time, which is just, all great music.
Yeah, it's great music. And apparently ABC is easy as 1, 2, 3. I don't know whether that's a line in the song, but it is. And so if you listen to this right now, these 4 tracks are all these 4 tracks about 20 minutes in total. There's going to be a few ads that obviously YouTube put in there. So what you can do now with these 20 minutes, next time we come and talk, it's going to be 20 minutes have gone. You can go out and do some work, concentrate on one thing for 20 minutes, go and get it done. And we'll be back with Brian after the Jackson 5 ABC, and we'll see you soon.